You mentioned about the women's business centres, and not unsurprisingly, that's an area that jumped out at me. Are you able to give me a wee bit more information about that, about how it might work? Have you thought about any kind of structural planning around it?
Well, in terms of what we've been trying to do, Women's Enterprise Scotland have been very influential in shaping our approach over recent years and what we have been doing, and this is not a new thing. We have been trying to support women in business for a long time, but I do think there needs to be a game changer on this, because that, if we're looking at gender equality in lots of different areas, the fact that only 20% of businesses are owned by women says a lot, and that's not because women aren't capable. They absolutely are. So there needs to be support in terms of those that are wanting to set up, giving them grant support in that period where they might not be earning, in that early stage. And that is a big aspect of our approach on entrepreneurialism and enterprise generally, is that challenge for those that just want to start up. And that's where the jobs and growth will come from in the future. And my concern would be that post-COVID, there is a reticence either for banks to invest in these companies, or how do we make sure we've got that step change. So for women, a lot of it can be mentoring, support, structural, but some of it will be supporting women, particularly in that first year when they're trying to set up, and to provide some kind of wage subsidy or some kind of, to allow them to stop their previous employment and start their business in that bridge area. So that's going to be one of the very practical things, again, that we're bringing forward. So I'm very pleased that to see that in the manifesto. And I think, again, it's about how do we tap into the unrealised potential of Scotland. In many ways, Scotland is that unrealised potential in so many different ways. But for women in business, I think that is something that we can very practically demonstrate, that we can, with some support, hopefully encourage more growth in that area.
And there's a couple of the things that jump out for me about that is I think that the way women have always had to run their lives, if they have children and if they have a career, is to multitask to the nth degree. I mean, both of us have been through that position. And I think this COVID pandemic has shown a lot of other people about how you maybe need to live your life in a different way, and people have been working at home, dipping into their work, doing a bit of family stuff, and obviously everyone's been involved in that, all kind of parents, and I think women are used to that, and it will be very, very helpful for them to get that support. The other point I was going to make as well was that it's been a concern of mine for some time to see how the banks react as we move forward. Now, we know the schemes that were set up in terms of CBILS and bounce back loans and so on, but for some time, based on the work that I still do supporting the all-party parliamentary group for fair business banking based out of Westminster, that once that initial period, particularly the kind of underwriting period by the UK government had passed, that then banks would start to want to de-risk, and actually it would turn them away from investing into entrepreneurial and what they perceive as higher risk businesses. But of course, we know investing in relatively innovation, for innovating in effect, is the way that we are going to drive out the pandemic. So I think you're quite right to have concerns about appetite for lending, particularly for small businesses, and you're bang on with that.
But we can't let the banks off the hook on this, and so therefore one of the pieces of work that I commissioned after our advisory group on economic reform and recovery delivered their report was pursuing the issues with the banks as well, because there has to be, and they acknowledge in my discussions I've had with them, a period of sort of a longer forbearance, because the banks have not suffered from this. In fact, their balances will be very, very strong at this point. So therefore, in terms of their interest as part of the everybody's collective interest, is to ensure businesses can keep trading. And been trading, but not just trading to cope, trading to grow. And that's going to be the challenge, is to ensure can we transfer what are CBILS or those kind of loans into loans not just for survival, but loans then for growth. And particularly in Scotland's base, as you know, so many SMEs, so many family businesses that have traditionally not been in that space. And so therefore, this is going to be a key area of working with the financial institutions that we will want to take forward as part of that economic growth and recovery. Those dialogues, the dialogue, it continues with the Banking Economy Forums, our different areas working with banks, but a lot of the decisions are made obviously in England and in terms of the headquarters staff there, but there's also a challenge for the UK, and that's where it's all very well for us to try and lobby and to try and persuade the UK government to do things with their CBILS loans, etc. But you're doing that one step removed. But it is about looking to encourage that enterprise entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, there'll be challenges for some businesses. We know that, so when there's such a disruption, but it does sometimes provide opportunities for new starts in different areas. And one of the areas, though, that we do have to be very mindful of is, although currently women's levels of unemployment are not greater than men's, in fact, if anything, it's the other way around. More women are in those occupations that are furloughed and still furloughed. So when that starts rolling out in retail, in hospitality, in those areas, that's why we're going to have to try and have the National Transition Training Fund that we have, for example, that's in the manifesto, to help them move and pivot into different areas. And for example, we know in Glasgow there was a very good scheme that took retail staff and retrain them to work at Barclays in terms of finances. And these things we know can work. We just have to upscale them and make sure that they're happening elsewhere.